Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm really excited. I feel like Maggie and I have been friends for at least a decade. She assures me we just met, but you might recognize her as the amazing talent on American Ninja Warrior. So, Maggie, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll figure out what you do today, because I want to hear the story from how you went from warrior to business entrepreneur magnet.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. And the last 15 minutes of sharing a love for comic books and Jurassic Park. But we're here to talk about American Ninja Warrior. I'm an 8-time American Ninja Warrior, a previous Mrs. International. I was second place at the world's toughest mudder, running 75 miles and completing 330 obstacles in 24 hours. And more than anything, I am a mother of 3 with a now 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and 13-year-old who have literally spent nearly their entire lives on this wonderful journey with me.
I love it. It fascinates me because we've always known you as a beast, and we mean that in a nice way. But I'd be curious how your kids see mom. Do they see a different version of you at the event versus at home, or is it that intensity comes home with you?
It's interesting you asked that. My son, my birthday was this weekend, but we kind of celebrated it the weekend before because we did something very special. We did a family 4x100 as a part of the first state games.
Saw that.
And so we took the weekend to not only run that race, but let the activities continue as a family. And we love being on the water. I'm from San Diego, so I'm a total water girl. Like, you could just leave me in a kiddie pool and I'd be fine, maybe with a snack. And so we were out paddleboarding, and my companion was like, all right, everybody, like, stand up on a log and give a speech about your mom, which was so sweet. And, my daughter, she gets out and she's like, my mom's kind and funny. And, she's always there for me. And I was like, oh, and my son gets up, who's usually a man of few words, and he gives a legitimate speech. And I was like,
wow.
And he says, my mom is so wise. She always shows me the way and how to use the force, so he gives, Star Wars reference, which is way to my heart.
Love him already. Yep.
But he said, she's a woman who really does offer wisdom, and she handles conflict so well. And I learned so much from her. And I'm just sitting here like this. And I was like, zoom in. And he gives a real speech. And I was like, did you mean that? He goes, yes, I meant that, Mom. And I'm like, thank you. And what was so wonderful is every teenager can go through a rough time. And there are actually a couple years where him and I were just in a rough spot. He was an angsty teenager. And when I was trying to offer wisdom, it was like, no, Mom. And
Mom.
I was heartbroken over it. But I was like, the best thing I can do as a parent is let them have their journey and their story and their space. And then I'm just going to be me as a mom. And so to see the impact of that all these years, and it's a roundabout way to answer your question that I'm just me to them. And we are a pretty intense family. My other daughter had a friend with us recently. I was like, let's go for a bike ride. I was like, don't worry, we'll be leisurely. And this 15-year-old girl goes, I think we have different ideas of leisure. And I was
You're
like,
halfway up the mountain and she's looking at the soft trail going, wait a minute.
So our version of a leisure bike ride is apparently not everyone else's, but it's just who we are. And I've seen it really impact their lives, especially with my son having this attitude of never give up on his own. Yeah. And we're not just what we say, but what we do. And it's a reason I re-entered some things this year, like track, to really demonstrate to them focus, grit, determination. Although they've kind of seen it their whole life through Ninja Warrior, now that all of my kids are in track, I wanted to re-enter that world with them as well.
I love it. And by the way, happy belated birthday.
You.
I did see your post. I don't know why it popped up on my feed this morning about the 4x4 relay. And I went, oh, I'm going to have to ask you about that. So you beat me to it. And, I'm just thinking out loud, like, you were the quintessential entrepreneur, even back in the days on American Ninja Warrior, because I'm betting your kiddos were there, ringside watching Mom and, laughing and crying right with you. So
Yeah, my entrepreneurship journey truly actually started when I was like 5. Other girls
Okay.
collected Barbies, I collected business cards. And I had a business card booklet, and then I made my own. I was like, Maggie's Closet, and I made up a fake number and I drew clothes, and I would create bookmarks, and I'd walk around my neighborhood and sell bookmarks for a nickel. And I was always doing something. Top cookie seller in San Diego, I sold 2,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies.
Wow.
And
I bet
but
there's a plaque somewhere with your young picture on it. Am I right?
8009. But I'll tell you, it actually was about strategy. I went to a police station and I was like, here's my market. And that's how I was top cookie seller. And that's no knock to police. My dad was a police officer.
Yeah.
But it really was in me from a young age. So it was, go ahead.
You get a lot of respect for me that you saw your audience and you served them. There's no judgment about police in there. It's just if your dad was a police officer and you saw the market, it takes a lot to go market fit. Ooh, let's put them together. So I applaud your early initiative.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I grew up heading down to police stations and to visit him and the Police Officers Association. So, it was something that I think it's important and useful to know the ways that we interact with life like that if we're trying to understand our future. Even when I ran for student council in high school, I'd never run for student council. I didn't do anything like that. But at a young age, I realized, I wonder, and I didn't know what a marketing plan was. I didn't know what any of those things were, but I created a campaign. Yeah. And I flooded the school with flyers that I used in my little Microsoft Paint. I mean, they're just awful and pixelated, and everything was like on purple paper with gray ink. But I got elected, and it really was because I had just a great campaign, I think. And all of those things translated into different pieces of my career where for 10 years, I designed, managed, and built multi-million-dollar construction projects, building stadiums and arenas. And I was in charge of telling the story through the built environment. And I've been able to take all those skills into every area of my life, including Ninja Warrior, to be able to have an impact through storytelling, through branding, and as you know, the biggest and best brand is just being you. And so that's who we've been as Team Thorne.
I love that. And I think, there's so many things in my head. I'll share just for disclosure. My very first business venture failed colossally. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and I got it in my head I was going to run a lemonade stand. I built the stand. I put the sign up and made the lemonade. Nobody showed. And I'm like, So my mom made me tear the stand down after about a week, but the idea was there. It was just, I didn't have a market for my product, and mom and dad weren't paying for their lemonade. So
what would have been great is if there was someone whispering, if you build it, they will come.
I probably heard voices like that in my head when I was a kid, but I do love the story. Now, okay, so you went from construction. How did you decide I'm going to be Maggi Thorne, the American Ninja Warrior? I mean, that was not I woke up one morning and decided to do it thing. I'm sure that there was a training and, but how did that evolve? And then we'll get to how did you get from there to here? Because that's the real juicy story, I bet.
Yeah, to sum it up so we can get to the juicy part, and then I'll purchase a glass of lemonade from you.
Thank you.
When I even entered into the construction realm, I was enrolled in a master's program for nutrition. And I started that job as a custodian. And I ended up designing and managing the facilities I cleaned. And that's its own story. But it's important for what I'm about to share, because I learned that you never say never. And sometimes, even if you don't think you're equipped for it, to go and to try, and you never know what's going to happen. And I am a person who, I think we can figure this out. And that served me well in a lot of areas. And it's because I view failure differently. It's falling forward. We get to learn. And it turns out I'm a lifelong learner and very curious. Yeah. So when I lost a best friend, my brother passed away. Then I had a best friend that passed away. And the day of her funeral, I felt like I was called to build people and not buildings. And I had been a background person, project manager, designer. And I was like, how could I use all of my abilities to become outward facing? And I had remembered, I know how to do marketing. I've been an athlete. I did a pageant once as a teenager. I was team Miss San Diego. Let's combine them. And so I quit my job, which everyone thought I was nuts for doing. And I had moved up very quickly in that career and was very successful. And I had a lot of responsibility, and almost the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And so people literally did not think I should leave, down to I had nobody that agreed with me.
You had the nerve to walk away from the throne that was waiting for you, right?
Yeah, the nerve. But I really felt like I knew what I was supposed to do, and I wanted to impact people and love people. And it's not that I couldn't do that, but it's just very different. And so I wanted to be face to face and one-on-one. It's not just about a TV show or a large audience. It's all the in between. Like we were talking about earlier, getting to see a family on a sideline overnight. And so I tried out for American Ninja Warrior. My roommate was Jessie Graff in college. And so
She was the feisty blonde one, right?
Wonder Woman.
Yes. She was my boys and I. She was our second favorite. I think my wife liked her almost as much as you. But yes, she was
Very kind.
we always watched it. It was like, I would hang out with those two after the event. Like you guys were fun.
Oh, you better stretch and sign a waiver.
Yeah, I realize that now. There's another guy, Phoenix something.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, tangents.
No, it's great. He's incredible. Yeah, the whole community, as we said, and he is the Phoenix, but Najee Richardson.
Yes.
Yeah. So I knew Jessie did the show and I wanted to give it a go. In my first year, I thought, gosh, I'm going to get this. I was at the time, I just got second at World's Toughest Mudder. I was exploding onto the obstacle racing scene as one of the top runners in the world. I was competing in this international beauty pageant. And so I was like, Ninja Warrior.
Sure.
This wasn't the case. I fell on the first obstacle, year one. And then the camera was in my face, you fell, how does it feel? And I was like, amazing. And then they aired it. I was like, I've seen you. You fell on the first obstacle. I was like, it's nice to meet you,
And you got up. Just want to point that out.
But what I did is I shared about it. And I've always connected way more with people through those kinds of lessons. I mean, I kept going. And it wasn't until nearly a half a decade that I actually had success on the show. And it was another journey that people didn't agree I should keep going, because after my year one of failing spectacularly, I applied for the show and I was rejected, and I applied for the show and I was rejected. And people, again, they're like, you should quit. And like, clearly they don't want you. And I was like, no, I really think I'm meant to do this. And so then I came back into Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge, and we did very well on that show for both seasons. And then the top female in my region for American Ninja Warrior. And that was my hope, is for impact and really to connect with the world on a global scale. This may be the beauty pageant in me, but just to love well. And I've seen people through so many hardships, and I've never wanted them to feel alone in that. So if I'm this person who's just willing to be wildly vulnerable, I hope to do that with the platform I've been entrusted with.
I love that. And, it's fascinating because as a parent, you guys were role models that I was okay with my kids watching. I mean, there's other, there's professional athletes in other sports. It's like, watch them play, don't watch them off the field. But I always felt there should have been a crossover American Ninja Warrior with The Floor is Lava. You guys would have crushed that show.
If you hang out with us, that's basically what we do. Everything is climbed on and jumped on. And when you watch ninjas walk into a room, or going, yeah, that could hold me.
How could I get up there? Or
no, where are the cameras at?
Like it just, I am a full-time professional problem solver. And, I don't think most people understand you're in front of all these people who are screaming your name. There's all this pressure. There's a clock ticking somewhere. And yet you're doing math and physics and It's like, okay, what are my limitations? Can I jump that far? Can I jump that high? And, I hated it when somebody would make it to the end and then the fans would be complaining, and it's like, but they didn't finish. And it's like, let's just applaud that they got past, because there's a lot of people didn't make it past the first obstacle. And a lot of them didn't come back the next season. And it's like, you got to applaud the people who got so close. And then next year's my year. I'm going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. And that's just it, is how do you dust off or dry off in this case? And
almost always dry off.
always dry off. And, and pick up and keep going. And it's represented life in so many ways to me. And I know people are facing their own obstacles, even if they're not on Ninja Warrior. Yeah. And that is something I really want to hold carefully and tenderly. And I don't know, maybe the audience doesn't know this, but Wolverine is my favorite comic book character. And we were connecting over me crying at Deadpool and Wolverine, actually sobbing. Yeah. And, he'd been through all the hardship. And so I feel like I've connected with those characters. And that's how I really see people. And when I'm at events, I always have to ask myself, who's my one? Like, even if it's a crowd of 5,000, I really just want to connect with one person. And I hope that has a lasting impact, right? That's to a nod to our mutual friend, Steve Harper. That's the ripple effect.
Steve.
Steve. I had to do it. I feel like I could do that with you.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, we could talk about Ninja Warrior, but honestly, it's such a small part of such a big personality. And I don't mean that in a diminishing way. It's just you've done so many other things. So at what point did you decide it was time to not just be the Ninja Warrior and to move into the next phase?
After I went through my brain injury, I had a brain injury that happened on the show, which put me an outpatient for a year at a rehabilitation hospital. And I had actually retired fully from the show after 5 seasons initially. And that's because for 20 hours a week with 6 different specialists. And I thought, I should get a big person job again, because I was traveling full time, competing, speaking, like that was my entire world, sponsorships.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm going to re-enter the working world. But also with the caveat that, hey, whoever hires me, I love speaking as a hobby. So that's something I want to keep as a part of my life, to really impact people and share story and enter their world. And then I might compete again. And so I did end up competing again. I've competed for 8 seasons now. So I came back for 3 more seasons, hopefully a 4th after post TBI this year, for total 9 seasons. And I jumped into the nonprofit world, ended up moving into vice president at a nonprofit within about a year and a half of starting there. And I thought I would never leave nonprofit until I realized I don't think nonprofit fits my personality, because I'm pretty like, let's go, let's innovate, let's do this. And nonprofit's like, let's stay steady and not change anything. And that's
go.
Yeah, and that's
steady.
Bad. I think that's great. But I realized I was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't think I'm going to help them. I don't think I'm helping myself. And I really want to have impact. So how can I do nonprofit work at a for-profit? And so I joined a tech startup, careerpathway.com, and getting to help them with global strategy and client success and event success. And that really is my wheelhouse, is launching new ideas, large scale events, excuse me, that I have a background in it. I launched Ninja as a sport way back in the day. And if you follow, if you follow Ninja, you know that it's about to become an Olympic sport. And I got to launch the first Ninjas of Sport here in the state of Nebraska before I was able to pass the baton on that for that part of life. But so launching large scale initiatives, doing global impact. So it really fits that wheelhouse. And it takes all of these skills, the athletic transferable skills that you know how to balance a lot of things, a lot of pressure. I thrive under pressure. And so that's something where I want to bring that into whatever I do, that energy, that focus, but more than anything, that impact.
Well, what I'm sensing here is, you in the nonprofit world, you are a sprinter, and they're having you run relay marathons back to back to back. And I get the sense that you're big energy. It's like, but I want to do this. And they're like, but we haven't finished this, Maggie. Is that?
Yeah, I'm probably off to the side. I'm like, let's launch an AI conference. And I think we need to build a student leadership team as a part of this other 1,000-person conference. And
Yeah.
I was able to do those things. I did. I launched an AI conference and it was successful, very
Yes,
successful.
you did.
For year one, and we got it fully funded by some top sponsors. And so, and then I ended up in grant writing, like all of it. I've always been willing to jump into things I don't know. And I'm very grateful for that. I would have said, in case some young person is listening to this, I wasn't a good student. I really struggled in school. I didn't have good academic support at home. But what I had to learn about myself and take responsibility for is I am a lifelong learner and I am a student, but I had to find the right environment. And quite honestly, the traditional classroom setting, I just didn't thrive in it. I mean, I have teachers who took pictures of me like asleep in class, and years later, they're like, Maggie, do you remember this? I hope Ninja Warrior's going well. Forget to rest, and I'm like, oh, Mrs. Martinez.
You were the boring one, not me.
But it was actually in college when I came alive academically, and I needed a block schedule and I needed space and I had to learn how to study. So understanding that of myself, that I'm not just this person who is idea. I actually am an academic and a researcher and philosopher. Not that I want to sit here and self-proclaim. I'm saying that I hope it encourages someone that, yeah, maybe I am that, and I just have to find the right way to do it.
Well, I got to share something because I get the sense that your struggles and mine are very similar. So last year, my eldest, so I'm neurodiverse, and surprise, surprise, it's genetic. I have two boys, and they are both fantastically weird like me. They have a nice blend of autism and ADHD. And parent-teacher interviews, one of the teachers was commenting on one of my sons, how they look bored, they're distracted, they fidget, occasionally fall asleep in class. And they said, we need to work on his skills. We need him to be better. And I said, just to clarify, how's he doing in the class? Oh, he's top of the class. He's getting top marks. Okay, so it's not, is he disrupting class? Oh, no, he just sits quietly and falls asleep. I said, so you want him to do change, right? And I said, fair's fair. Could you be less boring for him? Interview was over. I didn't mean to go there, but it was just, a little, I was clearly triggered from my childhood because I was the, I was the teacher pleaser because I got tired of getting yelled at for being fidgety. But the beautiful thing, and I think this is where this goes, young people are amazing. And if we help them figure out who they are, rather than telling them who they should be, I'm a weird dad, Maggie. My boys have a 244-page workbook that they're each working through this summer. Dad wrote it for them. It starts with a letter from Dad, and I tailored it to each one of them. So my oldest it's all about lightsabers and Jedi and video games. My youngest loves penguins, so there's a lot of penguin quotes. But basically, I'm teaching them, and I'll send you a copy. It won't resonate with you as much as it does with them, but
I don't know. I'd be so sure.
You are a big child just like me, so you might get it. But basically, I looked at school and I was ranting for a while about how crappy education is. And then I was like, I'm smart enough to do something about it. And like you, I love AI. So I wrote a book on the skills I think they need. So we're covering inner work, so they're learning who they are. We're covering communication skills because I don't know why that's not taught in school. But there's an entire section on entrepreneurial skills. And then at the end, it's how does AI make all of this better? Yeah. And it was just, people look at me, and my wife, she's like, that's cruel giving them a workbook. And I'm like, I caught my youngest before summer started. He was reading ahead so he could beat his brother. I was like, it's only cruel if you're not like us.
Yeah, it's funny you said I'm a big kid, just to put a spin on that, because I think quite often we can get labeled as like big kids, but I think play is a necessity for adulthood and growth, and whether that's personal, spiritual, whatever growth that we want to look at, is we lose our sense of play. And in terms of being neurodivergent, I don't know if we access that side of ourselves enough. I think we have a generation of lost inventors, creators, entrepreneurs, scientists, because we're trying to fix something that's not broken. And that's not to say I don't think that anyone might need an educational plan for that or anything, but I love your responsibility as a parent to say, like, I'm going to call my kids up. I mean, the education system has its own set of challenges. I know a number of teachers. I volunteer coach at a school for a track program for my daughter's school. And to hear all the challenges that they have to go through, I know a lot of them, right? Like they're just doing their best, and we just haven't been able to keep up. So the responsibility of the parent is vital to teach those life skills and to enter into it, and so kudos to you for that. And I want to encourage people, like, if they don't have play as part of their life, they should find something that does that. And doesn't mean like, I heard a podcast, someone told me to play, I need to go golf every day.
Nope, that's not what we meant.
Hold on.
Maggie said.
Yeah, and as much as we are athletes, I've always wanted to introduce the creative arts. I wish I could say we're musical. We're zero musical. My companion is musical. He's a musician, but we are just not. But we love music, and I've taught my kids the waltz. And so we want to waltz, or we want to paint, and just to be able to introduce those sides. And we go to a lot of museums. If in another world, I would have been a history teacher, because my history teacher, Mr. Lang, had a big impact on me. And I love history, but so I try to introduce that in different ways too.
Well, and well done, Mr. Lang. I think that's, if a teacher can inspire somebody, that's huge. And I want to pull back to play, because I think I get told a lot, oh, you need to grow up. And it's like, why? One of my favorite quotes, I'm going to paraphrase, we don't grow old. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And that's like, everything to me is play. Like, I do not work. I don't understand the term. It's like, I'm unemployable. If you sent me to an office and put me in a cubicle, somebody would have a terrible end to their day. I'd be Hulk throwing the cubicles around. But the reality is, it's the curiosity to play and say, what is this? And I think too many people say, well, that can't be. Mm-hmm. I built something with AI the other day, and the common question I got was, why? And my answer really pissed people off. It was because I can. And somebody was like, what's the commercial viability? None. Well, then why would you build it? Because I can.
Yeah. I always try to encourage people, the best answer we can always have is for ourselves. We're going to have people who don't agree with us. The first thing I want to do is I really want to see their perspective, right? And this is where I think we can be adult, but playful, is having that maturity level of, they may not agree with me, and that's okay. Like, I wonder why they feel that way. That's where I'm at. I'm like, I wonder what they're thinking. And it's like, what's their brain, And I think I've grown into an area of lots of compassion, where we have to go through these necessary stages. And I see that more I'm in my mid 40s as of this weekend. And I'm like, gosh, now I see the wisdom I need to try to help impart on these other parts of life and the other people, and really owning that responsibility. And all the memes are true. I now want to garden. I don't know. I might knit next year. Actually, maybe not. I'd be like, okay, I'm done. But
I'm going to give you a heads up. A friend of mine, she is an elder in Native American tribes, and she talks about the 3 stages of being a woman. There's the maiden, the mother, and then there's the crone. And everybody says crone in a bad way, but crone in Native American, it's where you become wise and you start exploring other things. Because when you're, and this applies to dads to some extent. But when you got kids, everything should and is about the kids. And then once the kids leave, the joy is you get to rediscover yourself. And
Yeah. Well, and even bringing your kids alongside that, we've
yeah,
been a family that we really have done everything together. And that's one thing I do want to say this, because I get a lot of questions from women. They're like, gosh, I own a gym, or I run a gym. How do I balance this? I was like, bring your kid around. They're like,
yeah,
yeah, nobody really does it. And I say, exactly.
yeah,
So you're going to be the person that does that and shows people what can happen. I mean, my kids really have been there in my office. Like, I always ask people, I said, here's the most important part of my life. I want to drop my kids off at school. I want to pick them up, and I want to be there
yeah,
for things. And if that can be worked into it, you will have the most loyal, hardworking employee you've ever had.
yeah,
And then you have to show up. And so I do have a high output, but that's because, like, I'm so grateful for people who respect that for me as a mom. And I think we're culturally behind in companies, and which is why people are just leaving in droves and they're company hopping. Is we're just not building a culture for someone to, like, actually have a life, but it's mistaken as, oh, there's no work ethic anymore.
yeah. Oh, you're not career focused. Well, for what it's worth, I grew up on a farm, and, division of labor baffles me because, whatever needed that being done, my parents did it together, or one would do it, the other would do the other thing. But kids were always part of the equation. And so as an adult, that's how I've built my business. Oddly, almost all of my clients have kids because we get each other. If I don't know what it is, but people who don't like kids, I don't like them. It's just, but when it comes to my business, my 12-year-old is already learning how to create AI models.
Yeah.
I can't fathom, that you're supposed to have that separation between home and office. And I'm like, that sounds boring.
Yeah, and there's areas, like, we can grow and shape in that too. Like, in my younger years, I was a mom by the time I was 25, and I was still an intern, when that was happening, and moved into full-time work, well pregnant, like, having a child. And that's, being able to still come into that role and beat someone for a job responsibility. And I don't know that I like the word beat, but earn the responsibility while I was going through labor, not quite literally, but it can happen. And I did have an imbalanced period of my life where I would say I knew, oh gosh, okay, I don't have this background in construction. The person I was going against the job, he had a master's degree in architecture. I had a bachelor's in community health, and I'm a pregnant intern. And that's when I realized I could be my own barrier.
Yeah.
I could be my own limit. And I taught myself every single architectural program there was. I didn't go to architecture college. I sat at a computer until I knew how to use AutoCAD, SketchUp, learn how to read plans. I mean, it was all self-taught, and I just had to sit with it and then watch the keystrokes of architects. And I invited myself to meetings I wasn't invited to in Nebraska. So everyone was too polite to be like, yeah, Maggie, leave. They'd be like, oh, Maggie, you're here. I'm like, mm-hmm.
You're like that intern from Dilbert. You just kept popping up.
Well, I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And so I'm always watching. And that was something where, as we look back and maybe access part of our childhood, like I grew up in a very chaotic environment. It was constant chaos. And so I have a hyper vigilance in the world where I'm, like, always scanning my environment, but now I access it to read a room, read an environment, and understand people and their needs. And it's helped me in business. I've managed 1,000-person events and executed them. And it's because I watch a room. And that actually sounds really creepy. So
Not to me.
maybe evaluating a room. But it's
Analyzing, evaluating. Yeah.
But if I understand the other part of myself, I have a servant's heart. And so I want people to have a really good experience, and I want them to walk away impacted. So taking all of those skills that are a part of myself and moving them towards something that has a positive outcome.
I love it. Now, you and I could go on all kinds of tangents. What are you working on today that somebody watching and saying, Maggie's amazing, and we all agree, yes, she is. What are you working on that somebody might want to play along with you?
Yeah, what I'm working on now is a book, actually. That's the Never Give Up mindset. It's going to be a 365-day devotion of how do we move into the mental toughness of how to overcome obstacles. And it's going to be a workbook, fun. The thing that's hardest for me is I love color. And even though I was not feminine at all as a little girl, I'm highly feminine now. And so I want it to be like pink and yellow, except I want guys to read it. And so I'm like, oh, how do I brand this? But I want it to be a toolkit that could be brought into someone's personal life, into an office space, because that really is a challenge, is how do we break through our own barriers, get through those own obstacles and not limit ourselves. So being able to have a handheld, never give up mindset. And that's my next project. I'm partway through. I have 4 cover designs.
Love it. For the record, Maggie, I will read it. I don't care what color it is.
Thank you. I'll draw Wolverine in the back for you.
Yeah, there you go. You could have Wolverine and Deadpool. I love Ryan Reynolds at the end in the credits where he draws little cartoons. You could maybe do that in the background so that people know that it's also for, it's for everyone. But
Yep, absolutely.
And honestly, anybody who's comfortable with who they are, they don't care if it's pink or blue. I don't know if you knew this, but randomly, I think it was a French marketing company that decided, it used to be the opposite. So pink was for boys, blue was for girls, and they wanted to sell something one year. So they branded boys as blue. So we're a branding problem. Just
Yep.
all right. So we will be looking for the covers. When is the book going to drop? Plan.
Yep. The plan is to drop by the end of August. I'm working on a major work project right now. I'm helping launch the first ever Governor's Youth Summit with the state of Nebraska.
Ooh.
And to empower the workforce. And so I'm helping the lead support that with Career Pathway and the DED. And I need to get through that, drop my son off at college at Oklahoma State on August 16th. And then I'm going to finish my book.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, if you need beta readers or just early fans, let me know. I will be watching. Where can people go to connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. So if they want to look me up, Maggi Thorne, Maggi, no E, Thorne. I have a website, maggiethorne.com, and Instagram, Facebook. And I really love connecting with people. If they have a question about anything, I try to take the time to answer every single one.
I love it. By the way, the child in me just says take the E and put it on Thorne instead of Maggie, but yes.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Maggie. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. And we'll both have to reach out to Steve and thank him. So thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
It was great to have you on the show, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Jeff.